Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I have one of my besties, Ashley Saunders from With Ashley & Co. If you've been around here before, you've seen her. She's no stranger. We have a special guest today. We are interviewing he's not my good friend yet, but he will be. He's good friends with some of my other good friends. So that makes us like best friends adjacent, right? Absolutely. Anyway, you may not know Jon's name, but you've absolutely seen him in some things if you watch any kind of, recent TV. So he's been in Gifted on FX. He's also been in a little show called Cobra Kai that I feel like most people have kind of seen or heard of at this point. And he's also in a little upcoming thing called Loki. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. We're really excited for it. Is Ashley wearing her ring today, by the way?
I am.
Yeah, I thought maybe, So anyway, we're going to spend a little time with Jon learning about some of the things that he's done outside of those shows. And if we're lucky, we're going to extract a little bit of, intel into what's happening coming up here in a few weeks with Loki. I know, those NDAs, we can't say much of anything. We've learned, Michael Douglas told us that one time about like trank darts and stuff. So we don't want to get anybody in trouble. We definitely don't want to get anybody murdered, but we're going to do our best to extract any information we can. We'll see. All right, stay tuned. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
I mean, in addition to the fact that clearly we have mutual friends, we were just excited because not only were you in a trailer for a very, very exciting show that we can't wait for, but you've also been in some other fun stuff like Cobra, Kai, K. I suppose it depends on the person pronouncing it.
Right.
Because that's actually a really funny scene. And when I told my husband, he was like, oh, I remember that guy. And Gifted. So, how did you get involved in those projects? I mean, obviously you're doing some acting, or a lot of acting these days, I think, because you're not doing any of what you were doing previously, right?
No, I've gotten sort of out of that space
Yeah.
that I was in since, I guess, like 2004. And I'm not fully supporting myself from acting just yet. I mean, it's becoming a higher percentage of my income, so I'm still doing kind of like side projects and things like that. And what excuse me, I guess what they call the side hustle. Yeah, so I got involved. I got involved as a kid. My parents put me in front of a TV camera doing commercials when I was about 5 years old. And that kind of started the journey, although I didn't realize how much it started that journey until much later in life when I was sort of dancing around all these performative type careers. And I was like, well, why am I even dancing around this? Why don't I just get back into it? So that started. And then I think like 2014 is when I got an agent and started auditioning and doing all that kind of stuff. This is when I was living in South Florida. And then in 2016, I decided that, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to really do it. And I sold my house in South Florida and I moved to Atlanta, where there's a ton of TV film production. And I've been here ever since. So
Nice. So I know you can only tell us a very little bit, or maybe nothing, about your work on Loki, but we'll start with Loki and then we'll backtrack.
Any idea what you were auditioning for?
Yes. Did you even know what you were auditioning for?
Or they just like, here, but we can't tell you anything?
That's a very interesting question, because the majority of projects like that, like especially Marvel, you got to sign NDA on top of NDA on top of NDA. And they're usually listed as an untitled whatever, so they'll say an untitled streaming project or untitled film, or whatever they kind of categorize that. But you can, as an actor in this market, you can kind of deduce what it is based on who's casting it, because we know that certain casting directors cast certain projects. So you're like, okay, if this is an untitled this, I can kind of guess what it's for. Maybe not specifically Loki or specifically WandaVision or some of the other shows.
But it's a Marvel
but you know it's a Marvel project. And then you can kind of read clues in the scene. Sometimes they give you dummy sides, they'll give you a dummy script, so it's not. They just want to see kind of what you can do with it. Other times, and I actually wrote this story on Reddit when WandaVision came out. I was watching WandaVision, and episode 2 came on, and the scene in the library took place with all the community members, and I'm watching this and I'm going, that sounds real. That dialogue sounds really familiar. So I went into my files and I found the audition that I did for that scene as one of the community members. They had changed the name of Vision to Victor in the scene. So it was like, hey, Victor, instead of course, hey, Vision, because that would have given it away. But it was pretty much the exact same scene. So I was laughing about it and I posted it on Reddit. So interesting discussion about that. And so it's kind of the same thing happened with Loki. It was very similar. See, now obviously didn't say the word Loki, didn't say, there was no clues as to who I was speaking to, just sort of the scene itself. But then you can just kind of, like I said, you can kind of deduce and go, okay, I know these 5 Marvel projects are in production right now. This is probably this one, or it's one of these 3 type.
So you didn't know you were working. You didn't know that you were being cast for Loki.
Right.
You got the part.
Yep.
Had you
I
been
jumped
to
for joy. Oh.
Yeah, right. Had you been to Pinewood Studios at that point, or whatever it's called now? It has a different name. Is that correct?
Yes, Trilith now is
okay.
And actually, interestingly enough, my very last shoot day was the last day it was named Pinewood. So I was there on the very last day.
You were at Pinewood Studios.
I was at Pinewood Studios. I've actually never been to Trilith. I had been to Pinewood once before, and I'm trying to remember what I was there for. I don't remember exactly what. I was there for. It wasn't to shoots. It doesn't matter. Anyway, but I've been there once before, but nothing at this scale. I mean, it's Disney, Marvel, so it's a huge scale and huge budget and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that studio is just. I mean, it's unreal. It's absolutely, you're driving out, it's like wide open farmland outside of Atlanta, and all of a sudden this thing rises out of the horizon, and it's just this and they're building more and just building more. I mean, I think there were like 24 sound stages there, which is unreal.
Wow.
Yeah. It started with 4. So.
Wow.
That's crazy. So in the trailer, there is a feline creature.
Everybody loves the cat.
I mean, how can you not?
How can you not love a cat?
I don't disagree.
It suspiciously looks like it could be a flurkin.
I mean, this is Marvel.
Can you confirm?
Is the flurkin the thing that was like at the end of Captain Marvel with?
Yes.
Right. Okay. That I can't confirm. And I'll be completely honest with you, the movie magic, I didn't get a chance to work with the cat.
Oh,
they did the cat scene separately with the animal handler because it's easier when there's no one on set, working with animals, unless there's a specific interaction. So they did shoot, and I frankly was disappointed because I saw in the script that the cat was in there, and I was like, "Ooh, I get to work with a cat," and then they were like, "Oh no, we've already shot the cat."
You were like, "Dude, you stole the cat."
Okay, well, maybe we'll see some.
Yeah.
It would be cool. To be honest, you mentioning that, I didn't even think about it, frankly. That didn't even occur to me. And now I'm like, oh, that would be super cool. But
we're totally the people that watch those trailers, and especially Ashley. And we dissect them down to like what color paint was on the floor. So we saw a cat and we're like, dude, that's a flurkin.
I did not realize the depth to which the fandom for not just the Marvel stuff, but even Cobra Kai, which is awesome, and I think it's fantastic. But there was like some serious depth. People ask me questions about this, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like,
we would be those people.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. I think it's so super cool.
Because like we saw the cat, and we're like, it's a flurkin because there's a cat, and it's Marvel. Okay, so you didn't get to work with the cat, and that's really sad. But what about Tom or Owen? Did you get any type of set time with them? Because I mean, it seems like you're in the room with Tom at least.
Yes.
Sliding him an inordinate stack of papers.
So I did work with Tom. Tom and I worked together. for that scene. It's shot as like a single. So basically, they do it with the camera over my shoulder shooting him, and then the camera over his shoulder shooting me, and it's edited together that way. So you can never actually see us. There's no establishing shot of us in the room together, though we were for the entire time. So I did get to work with Tom for almost pretty much 3/4 of a day. Him and I got to work together, and I actually get to also see them drop him through the ceiling in a wire harness, which was pretty neat too. So
that's awesome.
That was a neat little experience, yeah.
I'm not
But
jealous at
super
all.
awesome guy, super awesome guy. I mean, he really was just truly and just really amazing to watch. I got a chance to watch him when I first got to set. He was shooting a different scene, and I was just sitting there watching, just waiting for our stuff to come, and just watching him work and his process and everything that was going on with him, and how he stays loose and how he stays energetic, and he's just super upbeat, and it was great. It was such an amazing experience.
So were you familiar with Loki or Marvel Comics at all before you got this part?
Oh yeah. No, I was a Marvel comic kid or I was a Marvel comic collector as a kid. So I knew the Avengers, I knew Loki, I knew, Spider-Man, the Punisher. I mean, the whole thing. It was a G.I. Joe collector. I mean, it was like, that was my childhood. I'm a child of the 80s. So that was my whole upbringing. And I was a big fan, or am a big fan of the Marvel properties. Like I enjoyed watching movies, and saw everyone in the theater just about. So, and watched WandaVision. I'm currently watching Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, I watch all that stuff. Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. And now, now that I'm, I guess, officially part of the MCU, it's like, I need to keep up on it because
you are officially part of it.
You're going to have a page on the wiki, on the fandom wiki.
Yeah. How does it feel to be part of the MCU?
Well, I said to somebody, I said, well, now I'm part of the Karate Kid universe. I'm part of the MCU. I said, you throw in Star Wars or Indiana Jones, and you've pretty much wrapped up my childhood right there. So,
I mean,
it's pretty cool. I'll be honest with you. And I happen to be good friends with Chris Evans, stand-in, who's been working with Chris for the last 12, 13 years. And
so basically, we're all now BFFs with Chris Evans, right? Because we're friends with you, and you're friends with his stand-in, and he's friends with Chris.
Right. So you're now like you're like 2 degrees away. I'm 1 degree away. You're 2.
I mean, that's brilliant.
I'll take 2. Right.
I would absolutely take 2.
So him and I played golf on I guess on Monday.
Wait, you and Chris or the stand?
No, me and the stand.
He's like, and where do you golf? Let me know.
Yeah, I was like, okay, half kidding. No.
But I like to call him Lieutenant America because he's Chris Evans stand-in, which drives him nuts. But he got out of his car and I was like, hey, what's up, fellow MCU, universe person? And he was like, yeah, because he happened to have been wearing his Avengers Endgame crew jacket that he had on. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, he's traveled all over the world with Chris, and they give him a bit part in every movie, which is super cool. And so he's done a lot of that.
That's awesome.
What was it like working on a Marvel show, and then also like working on Cobra Kai? Because like you said, it's like the fandom thing, and then being a fan yourself. Like I can only imagine as somebody who grew up watching like the 90s X-Men and the Marvel, and I collected comic books too, which is why I'm like the one doing all the breakdowns going, well, in the comic book this is what happened and this is what they're trying to reference. So like, what was that like, actually being able to step into those worlds as a fan of the series and the characters?
I mean, in a one-word answer, it's amazing. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So when I first got to Atlanta back in 2016, I got there late 2016, like October. I booked the first role I booked was in early 2017, and that was on one of those murder recreation shows, like that type of deal. And I played the all-knowing bartender, the cops walk into the bar like, hey, have you seen this woman? And I know everything about, like, I remember everything about this woman, from 8 nights ago and what she was wearing and who she interacted with. And I was that guy, and it was a great shoot. And it was a lot of fun, and I had a fun time doing it. But it was certainly not at the level of like a studio show or a feature film or anything like that. So I didn't really know. Like I was like, okay, this is what we're doing, and I showed up, and I had to be like hair and makeup ready, and like all that kind of stuff. And then I booked Cobra Kai a little bit later that year, and I showed up on set. So at first I was like, oh my God, I'm part of the Karate Kid universe. Like I'm working with Johnny. Like this is the most amazing thing ever. You know what I mean? And you try not to be, you don't want to be a fanboy. You know, you're a professional, you're working, you know, this is, you know, it's just a couple of actors working together, you know, even though inside I'm like, oh my God, you're Johnny. Like, what's up? What's up, dude? What's up? Like, can we talk about this for a second? But I get to set for Cobra Kai and I walk into the production trailer and they're like, oh, welcome, here's your paperwork. And well, they're like, and we'll show you to your trailer. And I'm like, my trailer? I'm like, right, yes, show me to my trailer, please. Absolutely, of course. Like, why am I not in my trailer already? And you know, they walk me over and it's got my name on it. And, you know, I walk in this thing and it's got a couch and it's got a desk and it's got snacks and it's got, and I was like, holy smokes, like this is unreal. Like this is like, I'm like really here, you know. And then, you know, we were on a sound stage and they had built the entire dojo, you know, on this sound stage. And they had, you know, the big bright, you know, exterior lights to make it look like it was daytime outside, you know, even though we were indoors, and like all this kind of cool stuff that you always see kind of like on TV and behind the scenes. And I was there and I was like, oh my God, this is just amazing, you know, absolutely amazing. And then when I got, you know, that was 2017, I guess. And then flash forward to when we shot Loki last year, and, you know, it's Disney, it's Marvel, it's Pinewood, and that's even like grander. I mean, the sets that they had set up there were just, I mean, it was a movie level set for a TV show, which is what Disney said they were going to do. Is that we're going to put as much money into this as we do the movies, and it showed because they're not cutting any corners with anything. So it's just, I mean, just, and obviously COVID changed things a little bit, you know, as far as interactions and what we had to do on set, but not too much. And, you know, and really it was just, you know, I mean, eyes wide and just being a part of that whole just world is an incredible honor and just an amazing experience.
I bet. I mean, I think I would be like freaking out inside.
But oh, like, yeah, listen.
Professional outside, freaking out inside.
Well, listen,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like I get there, like the first, I was on set for 2 days, and I'm sitting in my chair the first day, and I had already gone through hair and makeup and wardrobe, so I'm in wardrobe, and Tom comes walking up with like a few people. He's going to his holding area, and he, you know, he kind of sees me and smiles, and I see him, and I smile and just kind of nod, and he stops and he's like, "Hi, I'm Tom," and I'm like, yeah, hi, I'm Jon, you know, and we had a nice little friendly conversation, brief but friendly, but he kind of set himself apart in being just a really just regular, genuine guy, where he was like, hey, we're working together today, I'm looking forward to it, you know. It's not, I've never worked with anybody that's been less than friendly, but he was much, much more than, and just really just, hey, we're actors, we're working together, let's, you know, we're cool. So, and it was great, and it really, really made all the difference.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say like the whole professional thing, like, because I mean, don't get me wrong, like we're fangirls when we, you know, want to be fangirls, but like we've done a whole bunch of red carpets and we, you know, have gone to LA to interview people. We've done set visits and, you know, part of you walking in, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm right next to whomever. But you can't.
Right.
You can't, right. You know, when you're sitting next to Lin-Manuel Miranda or Chris Hemsworth and you're all like, I'm going to interview this person, I'm literally sitting like 2 feet from you. I can't be drooling or,
sure.
You know, you just can't. You have to
be professional. You're doing a job, you know, and listen,
doing a job.
You know, I'll say, hey, you know, I love your work. That's, you know, very cordial and professional thing to say, but it's not just like, okay, so do you remember when you were in that scene with that person and then you guys did that? You know, you don't want to be, you know, that type of person.
That's an SNL skit, isn't it?
It is with Chris Farley, right? Yeah, and it's true. And the reason that's so funny is because there are people that are like that. And
it's just, for sure.
And yeah, and so you want to be, you know, kind of. I shot a movie with Kelsey Grammer like 1.5 years ago, and I'm a big fan of his. Like I grew up watching Cheers and watching Frasier and all that kind of stuff, and him and I had some great conversations. But like inside, I'm like, oh, I spoke to next to, you know, Kelsey Grammer, you know, like it was like so many questions I want to ask him. And I'm like, just be cool, like just have a conversation like this normal person. And so, but yeah, it's listen, I am so fortunate to be able to do this and I mean, get paid for it. That alone is like the, you know, but you know, I geek out on every single part of it. Like I love why, even just sitting there, if I'm not on, you know, if I'm not on camera, just watching the other things happen is always so interesting to me, and how it all comes together. What are, all the jobs that people are doing, and how they're putting the sets together, and where they're putting the cameras, and all that kind of stuff. And I just think it's so super cool, and I love like every part of it.
Yeah, the behind the scenes stuff I think is just as interesting as watching it.
It's so
being made.
fascinating.
Yeah, totally.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I remember when I did that murder show, I was talking to my dad afterwards, and it was the first thing that he'd really seen me on TV do, and he was like, and the scene was, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes long, the whole scene, and it was me talking to two cops, and he's like, "How long did that take you to shoot?" And I said, "That was about 4 hours." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "It was only 3." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But they had to shoot, the camera's over my shoulder shooting one of the cops, and then they move the camera and shooting the other cops." And and he's like, "Wait a minute, that's not one conversation." And I said, "No." I said, "We're doing that scene like 40 times over and over and over again, and then they just edit it all together." So you don't. They have to move the cameras, they have to move the lights, they have to move all that kind of stuff that you don't see, and it just seamlessly comes all together when you see it on screen. And Tom Hanks said, I heard an interview, I think it was on Fresh Air with Terry Gross, and he said, he's like, "I do my lines, every different way I think that they can do it, and then they pick the one that they want to use in the editing bay and put it together." And he's like, editing is what makes the movie or the show, and he's absolutely right, because Tom and I did that scene, and we did it a few different times, and he edited some stuff that wasn't in the script, and then I edited some stuff that wasn't in the script, and then I started playing with stuff, and he started playing with stuff, and we were laughing, and the director was having it, and it's great. And who knows what's going to make it in there, but I think if half of what makes it in there, just seeing what was in the trailer, I think it's going to be a fantastic scene.
That's awesome. Yeah, the behind the scenes stuff is so interesting, and I loved that they did a behind the scenes for both WandaVision, and I suspect they'll do one for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I hope they also do one for Loki, because that's, sort of that. I know some people are like, "I don't want to ruin the magic," but like, to me, that's the most fascinating part, is to see how it's all done behind the scenes, and how they do certain things. And I'm a theater nerd. I grew up doing that stuff. So
same.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's just so fast, because you see stuff and you're like, "Oh, that's how they do that."
Yeah.
Or it's like, "Oh, there's a guy just holding that person up from below." It's like all those little things. You're like, but then you see how it turns out on in the final product. You're like, "Wow, that's so super cool." Like, I see why they did it this way, and how they they wanted this effect or wanted it to look this way, so they did it that way, and it turned out, and it helps tell the story, because at the end of the day, this is all about telling the story.
Absolutely. Well, it's always amazing how much is like a practical set versus CGI too. Like, because I'm always amazed at some of the things that are practical sets, and then some of the things that you're like, "Wow, none of that was actually
none of it's real."
Physical. Like, how did you do that? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the scope of what they're trying to do. Like the scene with Tom and I, that was all practical. It was just, we were just in a room. They built this set, and it was elevated off the ground, and it was like kind of, almost looks like an elevator, I guess, is what it kind of looks like. But it's, as far as just the walls and everything. But yeah, there was no, as far, I shouldn't say that. As far as I know, there was no CGI done in there, because I just I didn't see the green or blue or anything like that they've done it, but it was all practical.
Were you expecting to see yourself in the trailer that they released?
No,
like a total
no. So I was actually, and I guess all of my stories go back to golf somehow, because I play a lot of golf. But it was 2 Mondays ago when the trailer came out. I was going to play golf, and it was like, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I get into my car, and I have this little like dock for my phone, in my car, and I pop it up there, and I see that there's like 5 messages, like 5 alerts from Facebook, like, "So and so has tagged you in a post," and I'm like, "What's going on?" So I open it up, and an old stand-up comedian buddy of mine who lives in New York, like, had this post that he tagged me in, and it was like a screenshot of me sitting behind the desk, and it was like, like, "Holy crap, Jon Levine's part of the MCU." And I'm like, "Where did you get this?" Like, I got scared for a second, because I was like, "Where did this come from?"
You're like, somebody's gonna hit me with a trank dart, and I'm dead.
Something, yeah. Like, I was like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "Dude, he's like, the trailer just dropped," and he's like, "You're like front and center in this thing," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I'm sitting in the car, I'm watching this, and I was like, "Holy!" And then of course my phone started blowing up, and people started texting me, kind of just that, and because I had to, obviously I knew what was happening, and I know, and we were actually supposed to shoot this March of 2020, and so I was supposed to shoot March 30th. and it got pushed back because of COVID. We didn't end up shooting it till almost November. So I knew all this was happening, couldn't say anything to anybody, obviously. And then of course, no pun intended, but the cat was out of the bag, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? How did this happen? How many episodes?" So yeah. So to answer your question, no, I had no idea. It was quite the shock, and it's the first trailer I've ever been in, so that was even cooler. Just add on to that.
Yeah, that would be quite the surprise. Like, I know I'm in a show, but I had no idea I was in a trailer.
Well, and the other thing is that as an actor, at my level, it's you'll shoot stuff, and then sometimes it'll get cut from the final, for time purposes, or it just didn't work with the story, or they rejiggered the script. So, so you kind of almost don't want to be like, "Hey, everybody, watch this show because I'm in it," and then the show comes out, and you're like, "Well, we missed you." And you're like, "No, I wasn't in it, but I shot it," whatever. So at least now with this, I know for a fact I'm in it. They didn't cut me, so I can at least say, "Hey, watch the show."
You mentioned that you're a Marvel fan and have been for a long time, even now that you're in the MCU. But do you have a favorite Marvel hero or Marvel villain?
I was a big Punisher fan growing up, so that was I had Punisher posters in my room. I had and still have the original limited series that came out in the 80s, and so I was certainly a big. If you had to peg it, the Punisher would be it. And then probably Spider-Man, I would say was in there because I was a big fan of Kraven the Hunter, that character, which I loved. Which is now making me think that I'm more fans of the villains than the heroes, which I don't know what that says about me, but I'm starting to rethink my childhood. So I would say probably those two, but Spider-Man and the Punisher.
My son is a huge Punisher fan, so whatever.
Got great taste. Love that
Hopefully
kid.
he'll make his way into the MCU proper.
You never know.
You have a favorite Marvel movie?
Ooh. That's a really good question. And
maybe top five. If it's hard to pick one,
you can pick top five.
Yeah,
or happy, sad, funny, whatever.
I mean, I loved Endgame. I thought that was a great finishing movie for the the entire arc. God, I really had to think about it. I would probably say, and I'm not going to put this in particular order, but the original Iron Man, because that really kind of kicked everything off. I loved Civil War. I thought that was a great picture. I really liked Age of Ultron, which I liked it more the second time. The first time I saw it, I was just like, eh. And then when I watched it again, I was like, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, it's really just everything. There was certain elements about it that I really enjoyed, and I thought James Spader was fantastic as Ultron.
Is James Spader ever fabulous or not fabulous as anything he does?
No, he's not. He is just he really is. I mean, I'm a big fan of The Office, and every time I watch the episodes with Robert California, I just die because he's just so good in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? 4, right? Civil War, Age of Ultron, Endgame, Iron Man, and then I had to pick probably Black Panther. I thought and maybe Ragnarok. I love that movie too.
See, I mean, we could basically just go through the whole list and explain.
Yeah, I really could.
And I also really like this one, and then this one too.
I do. Well, I was thinking I love Taika Waititi in Ragnarok. Like, he is like first of all, I love that guy. I think he's so super talented and so funny. And as that character, I mean, I just die laughing every time he speaks. It's just you don't expect that voice to come out of that character, and the way he phrases everything. It's hilarious. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious.
We agree. I love him. I think I say piss off ghost. Like,
oh yeah.
I still owe you a t-shirt.
You do. You still owe me a t-shirt that says piss off ghost.
And I tweeted that to someone the other day.
My best friend's wife is head over heels in love with Chris Hemsworth. I mean, just like when I mentioned that I was working on a Marvel project, obviously didn't tell her which one, she's like, "Will you be working with Chris?" And I said, "Evans?" She's like, "Not Evans, Hemsworth."
No,
I said,
Chris Evans is the best Chris. What are we talking about?
Well, I don't know, maybe. She's like, "So let me," and I know this one, it's my best friend's wife. Him and I have been best friends for 30 years. I've known her for 20. She kind of leans into me and she goes, if you're on set with Chris Hemsworth and you don't invite me, you're dead to me. And like this, and I was looking at him like, are you like, being serious? Or like, what's going on? And she was dead serious. She was like, I will never speak to you again. I said, okay. I said, first of all, I don't have that kind of pull. Like I'm Jon Levine. I'm not Tom Hiddleston, I said, but I'll see what I can do, So, and then I said, look, I'm working with his brother in the movies. Is that close? She's like, I want Chris. I said, okay, I'll see what I can do.
So what's next for you, Jon? What do you have on the
any right more now? Comedy or roles?
What's that again?
I said, any more stand-up comedy, or are you going to focus on acting?
I'm really focused on the acting. I don't really do too much stand-up comedy anymore, mainly because it kind of got too hard to balance the two of those from a commitment standpoint. So I said, okay, I'm going to lean more into the acting. As far as roles go, it's really just starting to come back now from COVID. We were shut down for a good 6-7 months, like a lot of other industries. And now things are starting to really kind of pick back up. So I've been sort of, I've done a lot of auditions, in the last probably month and a half. They're really starting to roll in. I've gotten some really good attention for a couple of specific roles, for some recurring roles for a Netflix series, actually 2 Netflix series. So nothing's popped as of yet, but I'm sort of on that cusp, on that short list for a couple things. And then I'm just continuing to audition, continue to work on the craft. I mean, this is an industry where it's like, the next audition could be, life-changing. And you just never know, and you focus on doing the best work that you can do, and hope for the best.
Sure. Well, maybe are you allowed to share your character name from Loki, or is that part of a secret?
Yeah, I mean, it was just the name of the character was Paperwork Clerk, so it was just generic. All right. Yeah, no, and I put that on IMDb, so it's not like a secret.
Okay, well, maybe he will become the next like Coulson, because honestly, Coulson wasn't meant to be, I don't think, anything really past the Avengers. But see, when the fans latch on to characters,
it's true.
Listen, and that happened with with Cobra Kai, and people just love that scene and that character. And I was just I never kind of go into thinking like, oh, this is going to be something that the fans are going to love. I don't think that way. But then when I went to it was the Dragon Con after Cobra Kai had debuted. Okay, so I guess it was like 2018 or something, later in 2018. And I had gotten a call from a podcast that was doing like a fan meet and greet at Dragon Con, and they were like, hey, we'd love to have you. And I was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, sure, that'd be cool. So I went not knowing at all what to expect. And I was like, they had rented out this bar to go. And I walked in, and first of all, there was a lot of people in cosplay, which I was like, oh my God, that's super cool. And then they were like, oh, Cobra Kai. And they were like, had pictures of my scene for me to sign. And they were giving me my lines back to me. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, you guys, you remember that character? And they were like, oh, it's the flame. We laugh and we watch it over and over again. And I was like, oh, wow. So that was my sort of first introduction into playing a character that people remember. That was a sort of a memorable scene, but just how much people latch on and love that stuff, which I'm amazed at, and in a wonderful way, and I adore it. I just think it's great, and I'm so happy that I could be a part of it. I'm a memorable part of the Karate Kid universe, and hopefully this character will be a memorable part of the Marvel universe. You never know.
I'm sure see some cosplays in the future of Paperwork Clerks.
Yes. I mean, my husband, he doesn't laugh at a ton of stuff. He's like super analytical and boring. But
Weird.
He laughed at your scene because he thought it was funny, especially with like the old timey printer that was like, making the noise and everything. And he was
telling you.
Oh, that's funny. I was like,
tell him I said thank you, and actually to get that to work, that whole thing in concert to work was quite a challenge for the prop master and the props department to get everything, because we were doing it in real time, and it was like, so they needed the paper to be fed, and then it was a person on top of the set feeding the paper by hand, coming down the thing to make it look like it was coming in. So there was it took a lot of work, but the way it turned out, you can see it was
great,
hilarious.
Well, thank you so much, Jon. We appreciate you joining us today.
This is
Can't
wonderful.
wait to
Thank you.
see you in Loki.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful being here, and I really appreciate you having me out. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks.
Thanks.